At this time, I have the honor to present to you the moral leader of our nation. I have the pleasure to present to you Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. So we've come here today to dramatize the shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summit of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until that is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But that is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protests to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. They have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. And as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our body is heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating for whites only. We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and a Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities. Knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friend, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free.
America has finally moved the people. America has finally moved the people. Red, white, black, yellow, brown, tan. America has finally moved the people as one. Martin Luther King was moved from what was going on in his era. We honor him. He gave his life for us to be where we are today. His dream, his vision, we are walking it out. He passed the torch, but we failed to pick it up and carry on. America has finally moved the people as one. And I am proud to see on my TV, red, white, yellow, brown, black, tan, moving as one because America has finally moved the people. Martin Luther King was moved by what was going on in his time. We have finally got to a point where we are moved by what's going on in our time. But I, as a pastor, as a reverend, as a minister, shall not be moved from the word of God. I shall not be overcome by evil, but I shall overcome evil with good. That's the time we're in. Good is stepping in for her overcome. America has finally moved the people. Ephesians chapter 6. Verse 12. For we, that's us, wrestle not against flesh and blood. We have no hand-to-hand combat with people, but against principalities, that's rulers, against powers, that's authorities, against the darkness of the world, that's world rulers, against spiritual wickedness in high places. That's wicked spiritual beings. That is fallen angels, demons. That's Lucifer or Satan himself. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principality, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. America has finally moved the people. But I shall not be moved from the word of God. Be ye not overcome with evil, but overcome evil with good. Be not weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap a harvest if we faint not. Martin Luther King died for your ability to buy a home almost in every area of the country And notice I said almost. We're not there yet, but we have come a long ways. And finally, America has moved you. And you needed something to move you. America finally has moved the people. Mark chapter 11, verse 12. And on the morrow, when they were come from Bethany, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree afar off having leaves, he came, if happily he might find anything thereon. And when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for the time of figs was not yet. Jesus saw a fig tree afar off. Jesus saw injustice afar off. He saw the police department afar off. He saw the government afar off. He saw the judicial system afar off. And he walked up on it expecting goodness out of the tree. And he found no goodness. When he came to the police department, he didn't find goodness. When he came to the judicial system, he didn't find goodness. When he came to the courthouse, he didn't find justice. When he came to our government, he didn't find justice. He didn't find good. When he came to our president, Donald H. Trump, he didn't find justice or good or righteousness or sanctification or holiness. He didn't find Christ. And Jesus answered and said unto it, no man eat fruit of thee hereafter forever. And his disciples heard it. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. Jesus didn't grab the tree and pull it up. He spoke to the tree and cursed the tree and told the tree, hereafter and forever, no man shall eat fruit of you. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. America has finally moved the people. Verse 20, and in the morning, as they passed by, they saw the fig tree dried up from the roots. Key word is roots. And Peter, calling to remembrance, saith unto him, Master, behold, the fig tree which thou cursest is withered away. What's the answer to America being moved? We gotta pull this thing up from the root. We gotta speak to these issues at the root of the issue. We gotta curse these issues at the root. Jesus cursed this tree and it dried up from the roots and it withered away. We want every issue of killing and injustice to wither away and never to produce any more of this evil, wicked fruit. And we got to do it by faith. Never knock your forefathers. I hear some of y'all knocking Dr. Martin Luther King. Never knock your forefathers. Never knock those that have gotten us from where they started to where they ended and where we should have started and where we are going to end. Never knock your forefathers. This man, doctor, and I'm going to back you up an inch further so you can get a clear understanding. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King preached faith. He preached faith, love, and hope. He preached nonviolence. He preached peace. He never preached evil. He never preached harm. He never preached violence. Love overcomes. They got guns. Yes, we can go get guns and kill each other up and nobody wins. You have too much to lose to be sitting in somebody's penitentiary because you didn't use your mind, you used your behind. Strategize for victory. Plot for victory. Sit down and count the cost for victory. Intelligence is still the winner. Sanctification still wins the game. Long life still wins. We need you here for a long life to keep pushing the vision. Martin Luther King received a dream. He received a vision. He turned over to us a dream and a vision. We should be running a dream and a vision for 2020. He ran his dream and vision for 1968. We should have picked up the torch and continued to run, but instead we killed each other one by one. Now that America has moved the people, be intelligent about your strategy. Curse it from the root. Do it by faith. Speak to the root. Keep your foot on the neck of this situation. Thank God that America has moved the people as one. Verse 23. Verse 22. And Jesus answered, saying unto them, have faith in God. For verily I say unto you, that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart. You got to know that God is still going to answer our prayers of injustice, of wickedness, of evilness in the high places. But we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass. He shall have whatsoever he saith. It is all about what you say. Power, life and death, is in the power of the tongue. Don't stop speaking faith. Speak to the tree. Speak to the police department. Speak to the judge. Speak to the judicial system. Speak to the government. Speak to the president. Speak over them faith. And believe it without any doubt. And watch God move the mountain. Verse 24, therefore I say unto you, what things soever you desire when you pray. You got to get back to praying. Don't stop praying. Don't say, oh, they just praying and not moving. No, we not moving and praying, and prayer, our prayer is moving faster than what you're doing. Everybody else has tried something else that didn't work. The black Muslims tried, it didn't work. Malcolm X tried, he finally came to the ways of Martin Luther King. The Black Panthers tried, they died off. The black Muslims tried, and they still trying with a false method. The only thing that will overcome, the only thing that will move a mountain is faith. And it's got to be faith in your words, and it's got to be in your words with no doubt. America is finally moved, and all the people are moving as one. Be not overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. We need solutions. Jesus never grabbed the tree and pulled it up by the root. He spoke to the root. Our fists or violence is not the answer. The answer is always spiritual. The police issue is a deeply rooted issue that needs to be pulled up by the roots. And if we go to grab this issue with our hands, if we go to wrestle with flesh and blood, with our fists, with our hands, with violence, with middle fingers in the air, we have now stepped away from spiritual, and we are now overtaken by evil, which is still spiritual, but it's not of God. And anything that's not of God is meaningless. Nothing is impossible with God. We can move a mountain by faith. This police issue is deeply rooted, and we need to pull it up by faith. We need to pull it up by the word of God. We need to pull it up by action. We need to pull it up by strategy. Laws are made for everybody. And everybody is required to follow the laws, especially those who enforce the law. There is no way that you can enforce a law without obeying the law. If you are one of them who are enforcing the law, and you're not obeying the law, you should be charged at a stricter, at a higher level than the regular individual, because you just don't know the law. You know more of the law than the average individual, and therefore you should be charged at a higher rate. We want to get this thing from the root. We got to take it back to the root. We got to get standards lifted up. We got to get these police officers to get involved with people relations. Give them some people relation courses twice a year. We got to get these police officers to take some psych evaluations twice a year. Yeah, some psych evaluations twice a year. It's come to my understanding, my belief, that they started to have some mental issues. They can't take the pressure of doing that job in a righteous manner year in and year out. It seems like the police officers are overtaken by evil, and therefore they have turned into practicing evil. You are watching me through a camera. I'm being videoed through a camera. When I grew up, we had Polaroids. Then they moved in to the videotaping of the cameras. Everybody didn't have a video camera when I grew up. When they beat Rodney King half to death, it just so happens that somebody was in an apartment, I think on the second floor, that just came out and started recording the incident. It wasn't just a happenstance. It wasn't a coincidence that this individual came out with his video recorder. It was God putting light on darkness. Light shineth in the darkness comprehended it not. In 2020, those individuals that were standing on the street with those cameras, it was light shining in the darkness, and the darkness still comprehended it not. If it wasn't for that camera that caught Rodney King's beating, that changed the whole view of how the world saw police officers. But we here on the West Coast in California have been dealing with police brutality, police killings, hate crimes by the police department, being harassed by the police departments for years. Racial profiling for years. Being arrested for years. Being arrested for nothing for years. We have been dealing with a backwards law in California. The law says you are innocent until proven guilty, but for the black man, the brown man, we are guilty until proven innocent, and you better have a lot of money. We need to implement some things for these police officers, for these police departments. That's how you get them at the root. Yes, we want them to get time for that murder of that young man. But then what? They murder somebody else next year? They murder somebody else next month? We got to fix this thing at the root. So these killings, this murdering that they are performing on the streets will be stopped at the root. These murders, these killings, we got to pull it from the root so we see them no more. We got to get things implemented. We got to get standards higher, psych evaluations, people relations courses twice a year. Make them sit down and deal with different nationalities, new standards to enter the force. We got to change the way they're coming in. We got to reevaluate how they're coming in. We got to get officers charged for not attempting to stop another officer's commitment of crimes in his presence or her presence. They need to be charged when they see a crime being committed and they don't stop it. They don't report it. They don't fight for righteousness and justice. We got to hire more African Americans, more blacks, and not just hire them, but allow them to stay black. Now we hire African Americans and we turn them into Caucasians. Or we hire Filipinos and we turn them into Caucasians. Or we hire Mexicans and we turn them into Caucasians. They can't come into the force being who they are. They act Caucasian. They speak Caucasian. They move Caucasian. They walk Caucasian. Let them be who they are. If you're Caucasian, be Caucasian. If you're African American, be African American. If you're Oriental, be Oriental. If you're Filipino, be Filipino. America has finally moved the people. And here we are. We got to get suspensions for cops who have multiple complaints against them. We got to get the officers to sit down with those who filed a complaint against them and hear them out with either a lieutenant or a captain in presence to evaluate, to mediate the complaint against the officer. The officers are just getting away with too much. The officer that put his knee in this man's neck had so many complaints, he shouldn't even have been at work that day. He should have been suspended long time ago. The police officers are getting away with crimes, and they should be charged at the highest degree. They got to get background checks starting at junior highs. Go talk to some junior high teachers, junior high friends. Go talk to some neighbors. Go talk to some bosses where they've worked before. We got to get better background checks. You're letting people in who hate other nationalities. Shouldn't even be on the force. How can you be on the force if you hate other nationalities? You are going to deal with all nationalities if you are a police officer. So I don't so much blame the police officer. I blame them that hired him or her. They ought to be fired. They knew what they were hiring when they hired that individual. It's not hard to tell when people have not socialized with other races. But America, thank God, has finally moved the people. I knew this day was coming. The way they treated us in 1980, 82, 84, 85, 90, 91, all the way up. Turn around in their police cars, chase us down, pull us over, harass us, pull us out of the car, hands on the hood, spread them, pat us down, go through our cars. I've never seen them pull over a Hell's Angel on a motorcycle. I've never seen them pull over another motorcycle club gang the way they pulled over black folks, African Americans, Mexicans in their lowriders or their nice cars. Police officers, and I'm not saying all of them, and I will never say all of them, because when you say all, you mean all. And if you've had any teaching in an English class, they teach you never say all, because all means all. Only time you can say all is when it's about God. He is all good. God is all good. He's all knowing. He is all knowing. He's all powerful. He is all powerful. He's all love. Yes, he is all love. So never say all policemen are bad. That's a lie. And right now, we don't need not one more lie. All police officers are not bad. But they are bad when they don't stop another bad police officer in his bad or her bad performance. Jesus Christ made the statement, if they're with me, they're not against me. Today is the day for all mankind to show who they're with. We got to pull this thing up from the root. Interview their wives. Interview their children before you hire them. See what the wives say about them. See what the children say about them. See what the neighbors say about them. See if they have anger issues. Require them to volunteer some time at an activity that involves different races of people twice a year. Raise their pay. Give them higher pay. That way you'll run the scum away. Put a dishonorable discharge on them if they act up and cut up on the force. Remind the officers annually about their oath, expected character, rules, and regulations. We need higher standards for these police officers, and we need them now. We need these higher standards to go to every police department in America, and we need them now. I'm calling for justice. I'm calling for every police department to sit down and go through all of their complaints. And every officer that has a complaint against him or her, I'm calling for the lieutenant, the captain, whomever is in charge, to sit down with those officers concerning those complaints and thoroughly go through those complaints with those officers. I'm asking for justice. I'm asking for every police department to take those complaints, to get in touch with those who have made those complaints, invite them into your police department, and have a sit down with them and the individual that they filed a complaint against. Listen, my advice to you, if you ever get harassed by the police, file a complaint. Look at the name on the badge. Get the name on the badge. Get the unit number on the car. Mark down the time when they pull away. And when they pull away, you don't go home. Don't go to your friend's house. You take yourself right to that police station and you file a complaint on that officer. And then you do a follow-up to see the results. And when you file a complaint, turn it in to the sergeant or the lieutenant. Don't let them talk you out of there and say, no, he didn't mean that, she didn't mean that. You just keep saying, I need to file a complaint. Are you stopping me from filing a complaint? I need to file a complaint. Listen, if you get pulled over, or if you just come in contact with a police officer, and you feeling uncomfortable, take your cell phone and dial 911 and put it on speaker and tell them you are being harassed by a police officer. Give them your location and tell them they need to come quick because you feel threatened for your life. We need strategy. Don't ever let a police officer just get away with treating you any kind of way. Because if they treat you any kind of way, they're going to try to treat me any kind of way. You got to put some feet with your words. You got to put some feet with your faith. You got to put some deeds with your faith. When they harassed me, I left that area and I went right down to the police station and I filed a complaint. Sooner or later, those complaints will catch up with that individual. Sooner or later, America will be moved. The people will be moved just like today. God be with you.